All right, it's Wednesday night. It's 8:30 p.m. It's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We hope everything is plugged in and working just right because this is the Panther-Lair Show on a Wednesday night. I like how that rhymed. I'll have to remember that, but I'll probably forget it really in just a couple minutes. But it'd be pretty sweet if I could remember it because I could drop that little rhyme at the beginning of the show, make it kind of a little payoff for the people who tune in right off the bat. Maybe I'll come up with a new rhyme every week, and that'll be like the enticement to tune in right at the beginning of the show. Maybe I can make a contest out of it, actually. And at 8:30 on the dot every week, I'll say some kind of rhyme. And then, like, if you, like, Twitter DM me at 9:30 what that rhyme was, you win a prize or something like that, just to convince people to tune in early and jump on the podcast right from the start. I'll forget this whole idea just in a few minutes, but it'd be pretty sweet if I did it, though. That'd be a pretty good contest idea that I hadn't really considered before. I hope Jim's paying attention and wrote this down because maybe we can use this as a contest in the future. Anyway, it's the Panther-Lair Show. It's our last Wednesday night show before we get into the regular season game week. Next week will be game week leading into the season opener against Kent State a week from Saturday. So, I mean, we're down into the final 10 days before the season starts. Got that to look forward to. Pitt is moving into its in-season game prep. Guys are wearing different numbered jerseys than they typically do because they're working as scout team members to get Pitt ready to get the first and second team offense and defense ready for Kent State. So it's all moving in that direction. Training camp not entirely over, but effectively over, and it's time to move on. So we got a big one tonight. It's always exciting to do this. And I say always, I mean, this is the second time we've ever done it, but it's over-unders. And we did this last year, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Jim and I going through a bunch of over-unders on the season. And so we thought we'd do it again. And I took an informal poll of the media at today's Pitt training camp. Training camp practice while we waited for interviews, did an informal poll of the media. So I've got some comparison points. We'll see what Jim has to say about all of these, and then I'll let you know what the rest of the media said about it. I didn't chime in on too many. I have my thoughts on a few, and there are a few that I greatly differed with our media colleagues on. But we'll get into all of that in a minute. We'll bring Jim in and see what he thinks about some of these over-unders. And I mean, ultimately, we're talking about the numbers, but it's a way to have more conversations about this team and maybe what we expect from this team. And, of course, you guys can chime in as well. We'll try and get as many of the comments and the questions as possible to keep that conversation going, the back and forth. But, you know, we always ask you to do: like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That's the place we do all these sweet videos, like the live stream here every Wednesday night at 8:30, our morning Pitt videos that we do every day of the week, Monday through Friday, a little bit of Pitt sports conversation to get your day started. We have our post-game shows. We got that to look forward to. That's going to be fun. Our first one will be after the Kent State game. That's some of the most – those are the most fun videos I think we do on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com because, you know, we get out the whiskey, we get out the hot takes, and we rant about a football game for an hour or two. Or last year after the Duke game, and this was quite an accomplishment, we went for 3 hours on that post-game show after the Duke game last year. And let me tell you, I sat here in this chair for 3 hours and did not have to pee once. And that's not because I wasn't drinking, because I was. We all were, I think. I did not get up once. I mean, shout out to me and shout out to my bladder, my old man bladder, for holding up in that one. But that's what we do. It's a lot of fun. I think everybody tends to enjoy it. Those are some of our most popular live streams and videos. So hopefully you can tune in and check those out. If you are like, oh, I'm never going to remember that you got a post-game show. Well, click the subscribe button and you can turn on notifications and you'll get an alert sent right to your phone every time we go live. So you never have to worry about missing it. It's nice and convenient. It's right there for you. We take care of all of it, take all the guesswork out of it. And then don't forget the website, Panther-Lair.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. I always say these things about it, that it's so comprehensive. We have football, basketball, and recruiting. We have message boards where you can talk to other Pitt fans to say all these things all the time. But here's a new one that I'm going to drop on you. You can get a year of the best Pitt sports coverage for 60% off right now. You only have until Friday to take advantage of this deal. Okay? 60% off with the promo code KICKOFF2024. I've been talking about it on the Morning Pit. I've been tweeting about it. I've been saying that, like, look, I get excited when I go to the grocery store and the berries are BOGO. BOGO is only 50%. This is, as our good friend Ross Abbott said on Twitter, this is better than the berries. 60% off for your first year of the best Pitt coverage you're going to find. Go to Panther-Lair.com right now. Open a new browser window. Don't close this one. Go to Panther-Lair.com right now. Sign up with the promo code KICKOFF2024. One word, no spaces. And you will get 60% off 1 year of the best Pitt coverage. And that'll take you through football season. It'll take you through basketball season. It'll take you through all the recruiting. All of it. For 60% off. That is a great deal. If I wasn't like, if I didn't have a comp subscription because, run the place, I would take that deal. That's a good deal. 60% off. Promo code KICKOFF2024. All right, let's bring Jim in to the show. Let me make sure I can hear him. All right, Jim. I mean, 60% off is a huge deal, right? Like, again, you get a BOGO item, you get really excited about that. That's only 50% off. We're doing better than BOGO, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's the steal of the century.
It really is. Well, we've done other promos over the years. We might have done a better promo than this at some point in the last the last 24 years, but not many. If we've done better promos than this, we haven't done many. So, you know what? My microphone has changed again. Hold on 1 second. Tell me. So I'm talking right now. All right, and now does it sound different now?
It does.
It changed. Did it get better or did it get worse?
I'd say better.
All right. I got to check that before I start to make sure I'm actually talking into this. This isn't.
I
Muted myself. Yeah, because there's this button right here that lights up. See, when it flashes, that means I'm muted.
Yeah.
So this isn't just a prop. It's actually plugged in. And then I forgot. I wonder how many times we've done this show and I forgot to even set it to the microphone. I think otherwise I'm just talking through my earbud microphone. But anyway, I digress. We got the over-unders tonight, Jim, and very excited about this. There were a lot of people. There were a lot of media at practice today. There was like, I counted about 8 people who chimed in on the over-unders. So we've got a pretty big sample size here. There were like at least 3 guys from the Pitt News or WPTS and, the regular crew. And that's not even counting me. So I guess there were actually 9 people. So there were a lot. And there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these over-unders where there was actually a consensus, like unanimous. Everybody picked the same thing. I didn't agree with them on all of them, but there actually was unanimous where everybody picked the same thing. So it's kind of surprising. You looked over the list. Do you think there are any that jumped out that you would assume were a unanimous pick?
I could see a couple with involving certain players. So
okay, yeah. Well, so we got a mix of individual players. We got and defense, offense, total team numbers. And I've got a few resources here just to provide some context on a few of the numbers, like what they did last year, just for a comparison point as we go through these. So hold on, I just want to see if there's any comments or questions before we. So Josh Newark sent in an over under, and because it's Josh, because he always posts his comments 25 minutes before we even start, I'm going to go to this. So Josh says set the over under for the first team all ACC performers. I say over 2.5. He's calling for 1 safety, 1 offensive lineman, and El Barto. Additionally, Narduzzi wins Coach of the Year since you predicted 10 wins on the Loyal Sons podcast. Okay. I was on the Loyal Sons podcast this week. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun, but their running gimmick is that they try to convince everyone of 10 wins. This is what they told me. They're like, this is what they do is they try to convince everyone else. But the problem is they were like totally miserable about the whole thing. I had to try to convince them that it would be 10 wins. I don't even think it's going to win 10 games. Yeah. I was like, what are we doing? How am I convincing you guys that it's like, they're talking about like, it's going to be 4 wins or something like that. I'm not taking over on 2.5 first team all conference players. There's 17 teams in this league. I think unless you're like Florida State or Clemson or maybe Miami, you're not getting more than 2 guys on the first team all conference team. I think that's an easy under. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, the 17, like adding a few more teams, and like like you said, you either have to be one of those like main schools or win the league, like or be like the 2021 Pitt team where they had like a million guys on the all conference team. Like you have to be really good, and I don't know if middle of the pack warrants more than one or two guys. So I kind of think that's where Pitt is. So
what about if I set the line of first team? First team is important. First team all conference selections 0.5.
I mean, I could see some guys getting there, but I could see it being 0. So I might take the under.
Yeah, I think I don't know because even you talk about 2021, they only had 3 guys make the first team. It was Pickett, Addison, and Kalijah Cansey. So even that year, when they went 10-2, they won the conference. They still only had 3, and I don't think this year's team is going to go 10-2 and win the conference. So I think it's going to be really hard to get to that number. Who do you think is the most likely? Is it McMillan?
Why do I have a thumbs up?
I don't know. Did you thumbs up something? Did I do that? I don't think mine shows up on your screen. No, mine stays on mine. You must have done it
I
inadvertently.
guess I did something.
Yeah.
Wait, what was the question?
Who, if Pitt gets a first team all conference selection, who do you think it'll be? Donovan McMillan?
I think he would have to be the most likely. I mean, he seems to be on everyone's radar within the league. So like, and just raw production. Like if he has another 100 tackle season, like people are at least going to know who he is.
Yeah. I the only thing that I think will be missing is interceptions. I mean, I think if you want to make the list, when you look at the guys who made the list last year, they all had interceptions, and I just don't. I know Corey Sanders said on media day, well, Donovan had like 3 times he should have had a pick. Yeah, he should have, but he didn't. And that position, that boundary safety, doesn't have as many opportunities to make a pick as the field safety does. And so I just don't know. I'm personally of the mind, and we have an over under about this, but I'm of the mind that his tackles will go down this year because I think teams will run less against Pitt. And so that's going to cut down on his tackle opportunities. So I think his numbers will go down tackle wise. And I don't think he's going to make up for it with interceptions. I think he could play better. I think he'll be really good. And I think he'll be an NFL draft pick, but I don't know if he's going to have the kind of production that a team that wins 6, 7, 8 games would need in order to get like attention. If he has 95 tackles, maybe 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries or something, I don't know if that's enough to crack the first team when there will be safeties that have 4, 5, or 6. There might even be a safety on Pitt's team that has 4 or 5 interceptions. I just don't know if he's going to. I think Pitt would have to win a lot. And even then, I think it might be tricky. But anyway, so we're taking under on Josh's 2.5 first team all ACC players. Okay. Same here. Voodoo IPA, longtime listener, says, I just brought my kid home from the ICU stay due to COVID. Need my pit fix. Bring it on. Shout out to you, sir. That's a hard situation. I dealt with a bit of the vid myself this week, but certainly not to that extent. And so hope everything's well with you and yours. Ryan wants to know who is a possible quarterback comparison for Eli Holstein.
I don't know yet. I still really I've only seen him a few times, like in practice in the spring. Like I haven't like seen him in that game situation. I mean, as a high school player, I mean, he looks good, but a lot of guys look really good in high school, so it's kind of hard to like gauge a comparison. I mean, I will say like he is not big. Like people like wondering like he's not that tall. Like he's listed at 6'3", and I don't think he's quite 6'3", so I don't know if that helps the comparison.
It's hard because like Ty Diefenbach and Nate Yarnell are really tall. Like they're legitimately like 6'5", 6'6", and so he's standing next to those guys, and it's like, I'd give him 6'3", I think, and he's solidly put together. Even if he's 6'2", he's solidly put together. It's the running thing that makes it like I don't know what is a good comparison in terms of the running. Like who's a guy who can kind of run like that with that sort of build? Like I don't know, did like a Baker Mayfield run much at Oklahoma? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like he's not as big as like Josh Allen. You know what I mean? So that's not a comparison. He's not built like a tank like that dude is. But you're right. I mean, we haven't really seen him in action enough to make that combination or that comparison. Mark says, are there any athletic D tackles or bigger linebackers splitting time between their position and defensive end to add depth to the depleted position? I don't think so. I don't think there's any D tackles really moving out there. They went the other way, right? They moved Nakai Johnson from DN to D tackle. And the linebackers on this team, they're not built like that. They're not that kind of outside linebacker that can move up to defensive end. They've recruited different types of athletes to play outside linebacker. So I don't think there's really a good candidate. I think what they have is what they have. And it's Matlack and Jimmy Scott and Sincere Edwards and who am I forgetting? Chief Borders. Yep. And David Ojebwe. Like, that's who it is. And I don't think there's a lot of help coming in the pipelines. Am I forgetting anyone that could potentially move there? Or do you feel like who they have is who they have?
No, I mean, because we've talked so much about the linebackers. I feel like even in the past week, like linebacker has been a big topic just because like we talked to a lot of them recently. And like all of their linebackers are like former receivers and safeties. Like they're not guys that are going to profile and like move the whole way down the defensive end. Someone asked about Jordan Bass. I'm like, Jordan Bass is like kind of skinny. Like he's not like small skinny, but he's not like defensive end like built that way. He's just a little bit taller than the other guys. That's all.
Yep. All right. I want to there's a lot of good comments and questions here, but I think we'll bring them in as they because they're relevant to the conversation here with Over Under. So let's jump into it, Jim. First one here on the list, Desmond Reed, total touches, offensive touches, receptions and rushing, set the number at 155.5. Now, for context, last year in 8 games at Western Carolina, Desmond Reed had 152 total touches. This year, we're setting the line at 155.5. What are you taking there, Jim?
I'm with the over.
You're with the over?
Yeah.
Most of the media is against you. 8 people, 6 of them said under on that one. I'm inclined to go with the over as well. Rodney Hammond, by comparison, touches per game, offensive touches per game. We set the number at 15.5. Last year, he had 10.5. The year before, 2022, with Izzy Abanikanda running crazy, Rodney Hammond had 14.4 touches per game. Now, limited games, but we're talking about 15.5. The media slightly favored the under here. What are you thinking, Jim?
I'm more with the under on Rodney Hammond. And, it's not that I don't think he's a good player, but when's the last time talking to a coach, a player, a head coach down at that facility, have you heard a good thing about Rodney Hammond?
Like, what did he do wrong? Like, where at what point over the last 4 years did he do something wrong to make everybody so mad at him?
I mean, like, not once this camp. Like, if you ask about the running backs, he never names Rodney Hammond by name. Not once in the spring, not at all last year. I mean, it was always just like, even last year, whenever people are like, ask him directly, like, why isn't Rodney getting the ball? They're like, well, this and that. And there's never been like over a year, like maybe over 2 years, there has not been like positive things said about Rodney Hammond outside in that program. And it's weird.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's unfounded. And that's kind of why I'm on the under. Like, I think he's kind of in the doghouse a little bit.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't get it. Desmond Reed, touchdowns. Total touchdowns. This could be offense or special teams. Total touchdowns on the season, 10.5. Over under.
I'm buying in.
Are you?
I'm over. I'm big on Desmond Reed this year.
Nobody likes this over, Jim. The entire media contingent today, save for yours truly, took the under on this. All 8. Nobody took the over. I went so far as to say young Desmond Reed will clear the over in the first half of the season. Now, I might be going a bit too far with it myself on that one, but I was shocked. I was like, nobody thinks this guy is going to score more than 10.5 touchdowns. Nobody thinks he's going to score 11. They were like shocked when I put that number. I said Desmond Reed touchdowns, 10.5. Everybody was like, wait, 10.5? They thought it was a crazy number. Somebody has to score touchdowns on this team, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to, I mean, we're already talking about him getting 150 touches. Maybe he had 150 touches last year, just in, 8 games or something. He scored a ton of touchdowns. I think he scored double-digit touchdowns last year. Why would I would be shocked if he doesn't score combined, total touchdowns more than 10.5. Wouldn't you? I mean, Maybe not. Maybe I'm over the top in saying it'll happen in the first half of the season, but like it's
Yeah,
got to happen during the year.
yeah. I mean, I think just in the variety of ways they can get on the ball. I mean, I think running backs are going to catch the ball in this offense, and he's going to carry the ball enough, and I think he'll get some special teams opportunities. And he's explosive. We've heard about it. There's like been a few like plays like from practice that have leaked on the internet. It's like he's busting 90-yard runs, like, and everyone talks about how explosive he is. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of buying in. Maybe it's a little too blindly here because I haven't seen him like in a real game yet, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like of all the running backs, he's going to be the most involved, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I was just thinking about it. Like, say Youngstown State or Kent State, he scores like 3 touchdowns. It's not that crazy of a possibility. I mean, he could score 3 touchdowns against Youngstown State. If he has one other like multiple touchdown game, that's already 5. He's halfway there in 2 games. You're telling me he can't score 6 touchdowns in the other 10 games of the season? Like, it just seems hard for me to imagine that he doesn't end up there, but nobody else thinks it's going to happen. Nobody except you and me, Jim. Rodney Hammond, percentage of running back carries. Now, I set this number at 51.5, and the gathered media contingent slightly favored the under here 5-3. The biggest concern was, and I think this probably depends on what you think of the rest of the room. Most of the guys there that took the under on this 51.5% of the running back carries for Rodney Hammond are concerned about lots of other guys getting carries. Not just Desmond Reed, but Derek Davis, Daniel Carter. Like, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty close with Hammond and Reed taking like 90% of the running back rushing attempts in this offense. And so it's just a question of whether you think Reed or Hammond will get more. But what'd you take on this 51.5%?
I went under, just because I do think Reed's going to be out there a lot, and I don't think like the whole Derek Davis like recent hype train from Narduzzi's kind of on accident. Maybe it's a motivation tactic to get like Hammond moving. I don't know, but I mean, I think there's going to be a role for him too. I mean, I'm not so much worried about Daniel Carter taking carries away from anyone, but I don't know. I'm kind of under on that one as well.
All right, this one ties into a lot of what we just talked about. Rodney Hammond's touchdowns. This is total touchdowns. I don't know if I see him. He might get some special teams work, but I think most will be running and receiving. 8.5 touchdowns for Rodney Hammond.
So he's 14 touchdowns in his career.
Yeah.
So,
but he should get more opportunity this year than he's had at any other season of his career, right?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, he had some starting opportunities, sprinkled in there when like Izzy would get hurt and that kind of thing. So his career high in touchdowns was actually his freshman year. And I think he had one of those like weird games where I think he like rushed for 100 against like, who'd they play that year? Was it UMass or New Hampshire? I think it was New Hampshire. Yeah. Like he ended up being the leading rusher and had a couple touchdowns. So like, again, that's kind of ties back to Reed. Like all it takes is like one game like that to get moving in the right direction. So I don't know. I'm a little under on Hammond, I guess because this is the third question we've talked about Rodney Hammond and kind of for all the same reasons I've said. So I don't know. I mean, he's going to be involved in this offense, but I don't know. It just feels like Desmond Reed's ahead, and I don't know. Maybe because he's familiar with the offense. Cade Bells might like him more. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Switch to the receivers here. Konate Mumfield, season receptions. Oh, all these numbers too. I should add regular season, 12 games. Okay. Yeah. We won't just to clarify on that. So Konate Mumfield, regular season receptions, 70.5. Most of the media went over on this number, which I was a little surprised about. He caught 44 passes last year. He caught 44 passes last year, 70.5, 6 out of 8 gathered media took the over. What are you taking here, Jim?
I'm actually going over as well. Wow. His career year was actually his freshman year with Akron. He had 60. Yeah. He had 63. But then over the past 2 seasons, he's had 5 different starting quarterbacks. So I think that's always kind of affected his numbers, and it's affected other people, returning guys in this offense as well. So I don't know. I think he's a good player. I mean, I've never, it was kind of like last year we were kind of like driving up Bub memes. They're like, this guy's really, really, really good. And it's just, he needs a quarterback. He needs opportunity. And it took a while for him to get going, but I think he finally kind of proved that. So I think Mumfield can kind of do the same thing. Obviously, they're different players, different style of players, but I think just with, an assumed better quarterback situation, it should only help his production.
All right. This next one's a little convoluted, but not too much. Wide receivers who average 50 plus receiving yards per game, over under 2.5 of them. This one, the media feels strongly that it'll be under. 7 out of 8 took the under on this. For context, last year, Bub Means averaged 60.1 yards per game, and Mumfield averaged 48. So in last year's pathetic passing offense, they still almost supported 2 guys going for 50 yards per game. Do you think this one makes it to 3? You take over under 2.5 wide receivers averaging 50 plus receiving yards per game.
I took the under.
Man, nobody believes.
No, it's not like, even going back to 2021, which was like, I guess, the best offense in Pitt history, only one guy did it. Like Jared Wayne was the number 2 receiver and Lucas Krull was number 3. Neither one of them went for 50 yards a game. So, obviously there's no Jordan Addison here to kind of skew the numbers. I think Addison was over 100 yards a game that season, but
yeah,
I don't know. There could still be ways to spread the ball around, and I think a lot of guys can get involved, but I don't know if I'm picturing 3 guys averaging over 50 yards a game.
I guess it depends on how deep you feel like Pitt's receiver room is. You know what I mean? Like, Mumfield, Poppy Williams, Kenny Johnson, Dejon Reynolds, somewhere out of there. I think there's a possibility that 3 of those guys, and it might be Mumfield, Williams, and Johnson, could get over that 50-yard mark. Now, what held a lot of people up is that I specified it was wide receivers because everybody is bought in on Gavin Bartholomew. So our next over-under, you brought up the stat last week, Jim. Gavin Bartholomew needs 34 catches this year to get to 100 for his career. And as you pointed out, the first Pitt tight end to get 100 receptions. So over-under on Gavin Bartholomew catches, 33.5.
I'm there. I think this is kind of what started the whole we should do the over-unders episode. So yeah, so I that was a little sneak peek last week. So I'm buying in. I think Gavin's going to have a big year. I think he's just due. I think they're going to get him the ball. I think this is an offense where, people always complain he's not the greatest blocker. He's not the best tight end. He's just this H-back. I'm fine. I'm okay with just getting him the ball. I don't care how much he blocks. He's their biggest pass catcher. He's one of their best athletes on offense. Just give him the ball.
Everybody down there today took the over on that. Everybody thinks and it's funny, I might be the one who's the most down on that over under, even though I've been the one pounding on the table for El Barto forever and a day. I'm still, I need to actually see it before I believe that they're going to do it. But everybody, all the media, 8-0 said Bartholomew goes over 33.5 catches. However, on Bartholomew touchdown receptions, we said the number of 5.5. 6 out of 8 media took the under on that one. What do you think of Bartholomew's touchdown receptions? 5.5 over under.
I think you gave this to me last week as a follow-up, and I took the over. So I'm not going to change it now because I know someone will call me out if I do. So
did I say 5.5 last week?
It might have been 4.5.
Oh,
so that does change. Yeah, I took the over on the 4.5.
You taking it on 5.5 too? Because I think Chris Carter said he could see 5. He was like, I don't know if I can get to 6, but I could see 5. So he took the under as a result, I think.
So what was his best touchdown year? I think it was 20. It was his first year. I think he had 4.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But everything we're talking about, if he's going to go over 33.5 receptions, you're talking about, career numbers. So, everything we're talking about with El Barto here is, a career high season. Does he get it with touchdowns?
You know what? I'm going to stick with it. I'm calling big year for Gavin. So
nice.
Hopefully he does not let me down.
Yeah. Well, if he does, it won't be his fault. It'll be everyone else letting us down. Right. Running back receptions, 30.5 Last year at Pitt, the running backs caught 20 passes. Desmond Reed had 21 receptions himself each of the last 2 years. This year, 30.5 running back receptions. Everybody in the media took the over on this one, Jim. What do you say?
I'm taking the over as well. I think I looked at even the other running back for Western Carolina. Like they got over 50 as like their top 2 running backs. So I think it's just part of the offense. I think that's you look at how they recruit guys, like there's kind of that blurred line is like, is he a slot receiver or is he a running back? So I think there's just a lot of play calls designed and a lot of concepts where the running back's going to be involved in the passing game. And since I already took the over on the Desmond Reed first question, I have to take the over here on 30 and a half receptions.
Man, we are all in on Desmond Reed. What about his Western Carolina teammates, Sincerely and Poppy Williams? Combined total receptions, and I might have set this number too high, 60.5. 6 of the media members took the under on this one. 60 and a half combined receptions for Lee and Williams.
I'm also under.
You're under on that one?
I'm pretty confident that this, like, Poppy Williams, like, again, like, another guy, like, people are just raving about him. So, like, I think he can make plays, but you don't hear as much about Sincerely. So that's not to say that he can't be effective this year or, even effective next year, but I'm below 60 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the hang up for a lot of people too, is the Sincerely part of that. They feel like Poppy Williams is going to get his, but don't know how much Lee is actually going to contribute. And like, as we talk about all these numbers and keep working through it, like at a certain point, there's a ceiling on some of these things that if we're going to give this many receptions to this guy, if we're going to give 70 and a half receptions to Kanate, how many are left over? And we're going to give 30 plus to the running backs, and we're going to give 34 to Gavin Bartholomew. How many are left over for Sincere Lee? And if we think Poppy Williams is going to achieve at a certain level. So it's kind of understandable, I guess, to go under on that one. How about Daniel Carter? Final year at Pitt, total touches on offense, total offensive touches, 19 and a half. Most of the media went under on this number.
I'm also on the under, just because I don't really know what the short yardage fullback role has in this offense. And even a couple weeks ago, whenever we asked Narduzzi about the running backs, he didn't have normally Daniel Carter's like as solid as they come, like 6 years, like he's the most tenured running back in the city of Pittsburgh. And he did he was like, we needed to get him going. And I was surprised by that. I'm like, Daniel Carter, like him? Like he's always ready to go. So it was kind of weird to have the head coach kind of question a 6-year senior. So I don't know. I'm taking the under.
All right. I probably am too. Points per game, 27 and a half. What do you think?
So I looked last year, if you averaged 27.6 points per game, that would have been good for 62nd nationally, which still isn't that good.
Nope.
But when your offense was 119th in scoring, jumping up nearly 60 spots is pretty good. Yes. I think they can do it. I think they can average an extra touchdown a game, because they were at 20.5 last year, so we're at 27.5. Yep. I think they can score. There has to be some sort of jolt from this offense, and I think they can score an extra touchdown a game.
Okay. The media slightly favored the under on that one, 5-3. I go back and forth. I don't know what I think they're going to score. The media had no disagreement about this. There was a 100% agreement on this next over-under, Jim. Nate Yarnell starts. And I set the number, and maybe this is a troll number to set. I don't know, but I set the number at 3.5. And it was unanimous on going over on that one. Are you joining the media brethren and going over on Nate Yarnell starts 3.5?
I think so. I still think he's going to be the starter, next week. And I don't know. All offseason, I kind of talked myself into he can be this game manager. I don't think he's going to mess up a ton. So for him to lose his spot, he would really have to, the offense would really have to, crumble. And he's thrown a bunch of interceptions. And I don't know. That just doesn't seem like Nate to me. He's going to protect the ball. He's going to make the safe play. So I think he's going to be able to start, more than 4 games. So
Josh Newark brought up an interesting point here. Says, with Pat Narduzzi saying that the quarterback competition is still open, that tells me Eli Holstein is the starter. In the offseason, he said Nate Yarnell was QB1. If Narduzzi can't say that 10 days away from the opener, that tells me it's Eli. Look, if it's a race, right, and we're told that one car is certainly ahead of the other, which is what we were told. We were told that in spring camp. We were told that implicitly when Nate Yarnell went to the ACC media days. We were told that more or less at the start of training camp that Nate Yarnell's ahead, right? It's a race. And now we're not told that he's ahead. We're told that it's a competition. I think we can only deduce who has had a better camp. Right? It's the guy who made up ground. Because if Yarnell had a better camp, he would have held on to that lead and he'd be still declared the starter, right?
I think so, but there has to be some cause to pause, right? Nate has to be doing something right where it's like Eli just hasn't completely jumped ahead. So either, Holstein's throwing interceptions and they're kind of concerned about that, or I don't know. It still feels pretty even. I'm sure Cade Bell has a better idea than you and I, and Pat Narduzzi does as well. And I know actually someone brought up a good question on the board yesterday, and they said, has anyone asked, who makes this call? Who is saying this will be the starting quarterback? Is it Narduzzi? Is it Bell? Because Narduzzi always it should be obvious to everyone. But I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to kind of ask him after the fact, how is this process different than maybe the past 2 seasons with a new offensive coordinator? So I don't know. It'll be kind of interesting how this all goes.
I think he would just tell us that it's Cade Bell deciding it. Whether that's accurate or not, he would just tell us that's all. But you're right. So clearly Eli hasn't jumped ahead, or else he'd be named the starter. And it sounds like they're just even. You're right. But if they are even, that puts the momentum with Eli. That means Eli is the one who has made up the ground, right? It's Eli who's the one who has caught up. If one of them is moving in the right direction, it's Eli more than it's Nate, right? Because if it was still Nate, if Nate was moving in the right direction, if he had pulled ahead, I think Narduzzi said something last week. He was like, right now Nate's our top quarterback or something like that. And it was very reminiscent of Jim Chaney saying to me in 2015, yeah, Chad's still our starter because nobody else has beat him out. And I was like, well, that's damning with faint praise. You're not really, that's not really a strong endorsement. They're well, he's still the starter because nobody else has done any better than him. It's okay, has he done anything to earn the job? And I'm not saying that Narduzzi was saying that entirely about Nate Yarnell, but again, one car has pulled even. One quarterback has pulled even with the other, as opposed to the other one pulling away. And I think that puts a little bit of the momentum with Eli. So, a question like that, Nate Yarnell starts 3.5. It was perfect 8-0. I spoke rather strongly when all of the media picked the over on that one. I said they were all wrong and they were gonna find out, but they all disagree. They were with you. They take the over and think it's Nate. One more on the quarterbacks. Well, no, there's more on the quarterbacks, but this one on the quarterbacks, kind of a random one. Quarterback rushing yards gained. So not counting sack yards or anything like that, but rushing yards gained. I set the number at 299.5. And I'll tell you the context for that number. Last year, Pitt's quarterbacks gained 284 rushing yards. That's Phil Dracovic, Christian Veyer, Nate Yarnell. 284 rushing yards gained. I'm setting the number for this year at 299.5. Nobody took the over on this. One person took the over on this. 7 took the under. What are you taking here, Jim?
I think I'm taking the under. I don't know.
So you think these guys, you think Yarnell and Holstein will gain fewer rushing yards than Dracovic and Veyer did last year?
There's comes some sort of sweet spot in there where they can rush for 291 or something, right?
It's true. That's true. It doesn't necessarily have to be 15 yards more. I guess you're right.
I don't know. I know Yarnell isn't a running quarterback, but I don't think he's a statue. I'm guessing Holstein runs a little bit better, but I still wonder if he's actually a running quarterback, or is he more like Kenny Pickett, where he's an athlete and he can get himself out of trouble. Like I don't know if he's like a straight runner. So I don't know. I'm with the under, but I kind of can see what you mean if with the context knowing 284 was the number last year.
I think that number makes it very interesting, personally. But that's we'll see. We'll see. What about team rushing yards per game? I set the number at 120.5 on this one. I think they averaged about 101 last year. The very poor rushing game, obviously, or rushing attack, obviously. 120.5. All the media took the over. Are you taking the over here too, Jim?
I am. I think they can. Again, like kind of goes back to like the score one more touchdown a game than they did last year. I think they can rush for 20 more yards a game than they did last year. Again, like 120.5 or 120.6 would have been the 102nd best running attack in the country last year. So again, we're swimming in very shallow waters here with some of these numbers. So, but I get it because they set the bar themselves in a way. But I don't know. I think they could crack the top 100 this year in rushing yards.
All right. Whoever leads the team in passing touchdowns this season, Jim, over under 17.5 passing touchdowns. So that's not all the quarterbacks combined. It's not one of the other. It's whoever's the team leader in passing touchdowns. Do you think they go over 17.5? Six out of the 8 media members said they do.
Yeah. I'm on
you
the
think
over
so too?
well. Yeah.
You're on the over? I mean, that'd be quite a bit. Quite a bit of passing touchdowns, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't remember what Keaton Slovis had 2 years ago, but 10. Last year's leader in passing touchdowns had 7.
Yeah, Slovis had 10, I think.
Okay. So we're talking about 17.5.
Actually, with the assumption that both guys are going to play at some point, yeah, maybe. Actually, I'm changing to the under. Because I'm even thinking like some of those like weird years, like where Kenny Pickett was good, but like he had like 13 touchdowns, like 2 straight years,
like 2 years in a row. Yeah, yeah.
It was actually funny the other day. Like I was just standing at practice, and like Narduzzi came up to Amanda and I, and we were talking, and he at practice he likes to like throw like the pads at like the runners to make sure they don't.
Yeah.
And so he was like talking about that. He was like, a couple of years ago we had too many guys. I was like, yeah, that's the reason why Kenny Pickett had like 1 million rushing TDs because everyone would get tackled at the one. He kind of like took it in stride. He's like, yeah, you're right, but it was but I was like, yeah, like, yeah.
Nice. All right. Speaking of quarterbacks running, sacks allowed 19.5. Last year, I think they gave up 23. What do you think?
I'm at the over. I think they'll be about the same. I think. Again, I went back and kind of referenced like national ranks. They were 46 in sacks allowed. So I mean, like that's like average to like middle of the pack, a little bit better than that. So I don't know. I think they'll be about there again. Like if they give up 23 sacks again this year, then that's kind of the number I could buy.
I think it's going to be under because of Eli's escapability, but that's just me. Interceptions thrown. 12.5 total team interceptions thrown. 12.5 over under.
Under. They had 12 last year. I don't think it's going to be worse this year.
Okay. Fair enough. And then one more offensive one, and then we got a handful of defensive ones here. Total touchdowns. I set the number at 35.5. Last year, Pitt scored 27. 35.5. 7 out of 8 media members went over on this number, by the way. You joining them?
Yeah. I mean, I think like some of these numbers, like at a certain point, they tie to like other answers I've already given. So,
right.
So if I'm already up on the points per game, I guess I have to be up on, them scoring 8 more touchdowns.
That's true. There's probably something to be said for that. Before we get into the defense, I got to talk real quick about our good friend Chris Gates, the Wednesday Night Live show, as always, brought to you by Chris Gates Fitness. Chris is doing his training camp right now. The signups for training camp actually end soon. It ends at the end of the month. Actually, the discount ends at the end of the month where you use the promo code Panther-Lair to sign up. That's going to save you 50% off the cost of 1 month of training camp training. It's an online fitness monthly membership that Chris runs. He's a huge Pitt fan. He's the coach, giant Pitt fan, giant sports fan, good fan of Panther-Lair.com and the Panther-Lair podcast and a big supporter of us. He has been for years. He runs a program, and it's a community, really. It's designed for sports fans. You learn how to make sustainable progress while being in a group that's a ton of fun and provides accountability and support. Members will get a new workout program every month so you can build muscle and burn fat and feel healthier and more athletic. And in the training camp community, they have challenges every month with prizes awarded like home gym equipment, supplements, free coaching calls, and more. Chris is actually going to start their first pick'em poll in the training camp community for week 0 of the college football season. And he's going to give away free supplements each month to the folks who are really good at picking football games. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to like help you get in shape and also be part of a fun sports oriented community. You get tons of support through live Q&As with Chris and the community. You get learning modules that teach you about diet and exercise, hundreds of video tutorials. They're all separated by the kind of equipment you have and what you're trying to do. It's really great. And you can get it for really cheap right now. Use the promo code Panther-Lair when you go to chrisgatesfitness.com. Promo code Panther-Lair. You can sign up for training camp and get 50% off. It's a great deal, but it only runs until the end of the month. So you need to take advantage of that right now. Again, it's chrisgatesfitness.com/Panther-Lair. All right, Jim, on the defensive side of the ball, we got a handful of interesting ones here. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Donovan McMillan. What did he have last year? 105 tackles? Over under 97.5 this season.
This one I kind of went back and forth with because I think the linebackers are going to be better. So, like, I don't know if there's going to be as many tackles for the safeties, but also that position kind of lends itself to, like, if you're good, you're going to get 90-plus tackles. Like, you look back at Damar Hamlin, like, led the team in tackles, like, 2 out of 3 years. And so I'm saying over just because, like, he's a good tackler. He put up a lot last year, and he didn't even start every game last year, and he still put up 105. So I kind of think he can do it again.
Yeah, I think I think it's tricky. You know, on one hand, I've said this before, I think teams are going to run the ball against Pitt less, which is going to create fewer opportunities for him. But at the same time, like, the only other time a Pitt defender recorded 100 tackles under Narduzzi, it was Jordan Whitehead playing that position. He was on pace for 100 tackles the next year, 2016, when he got hurt at Clemson. Paris Ford probably would have had 100 tackles in 2019 if he didn't get kicked out of like 3 games. Damar Hamlin was like, you know what I mean? So that position does lend itself, but I think there will be fewer opportunities. So I go under on that. And actually 7 out of 8 media members prior to tonight, prior to you, 7 out of 8 took the under, but we'll see if you end up being right. Similarly, a lot of people went under on this one. Nate Matlack sacks. I set the number at 7.5. What do you think on that one? A lot of people went under on that one, Jim.
Yeah, I think that was like kind of a number we talked about in a previous podcast. And I think one of my, points for going on the over is that every opportunity is his. Like, he is the main defensive end. He is the top pass rusher. If it's not going to be him, then who is it going to be? So, like, in that sense, knowing the amount of snaps, like, I can talk myself into the over, but I'm going to go with it. I mean, when he had like 4.5 last year playing as
Exactly. I keep saying that. He had 4.5 at Kansas State last year. And this is getting 7.5 as a full-time 4-3 edge rusher.
Yeah. I mean, I can buy it.
I think, I feel like this is a pretty easy over, actually. I'm pretty sure he's going to. PJ O'Brien, actually, our good friend Josh had a comment about PJ O'Brien, says, I'm bullish on this being PJ O'Brien's year. He cuts down on the mental mistakes and finally produces to his potential. I'm really intrigued about PJ O'Brien. 3 interceptions last year, second most on the team. He's had a ton of takeaways in training camp this year. I think he's going to play a lot in the safety rotation. Over under. Oh, and Pat Narduzzi said today he's basically their best ball hawk in terms of a safety, at least, maybe defensive backs in terms of the best ball skills. So over under PJ O'Brien interceptions, 3.5.
I'm going to go under.
Under. You don't believe in him?
I think he's a good player. I don't know. Interceptions and things like that are just, they're random. I don't know. I mean, there's been good defensive backs at Pitt that don't put up a ton of interceptions in the past. And again, he's splitting time too. So, I mean, we know about McMillan, we know about McIntyre, but like I don't know, Cruz Brookins has had like the best offseason out of like the whole roster. So like he's going to play too. So, I mean, you're talking now like they have to carve out a role for him. So I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't have guessed that he would have had 3 last year, but I'll take the under.
Yeah, I think he's going to get more playing time than he did last year, even as part of what could even be a 4-man rotation. I almost wonder if Javon McIntyre might end up being like the 4th man in that group. I mean, Pat Narduzzi said without saying that Cruz Brookins isn't necessarily the 4th man. I think PJ O'Brien has really been stepping in the right direction. So I think he's going to play. He played 350 snaps last year and had 3 interceptions. I think he'll get a higher snap count this year. And I don't know. I think PJ O'Brien has I don't know what the best way to say it. I don't want to say a non-zero chance. I don't want to say an outside chance because I think it's better than that of playing himself into a pro prospect with a good solid season this year and some impressive numbers. He's got good size. He's got the ball skills. He's fast. I think he can be it. I think he can be really good. Linebacker tackles for loss. They had 30. I set the number at 34.5. For context, they had 32 last year. So what do you think about 34.5? The entire media contingent today, all 8 of them went over on this number.
Yeah, I think I'm with the over as well. Just because this defense blitzes a lot. These guys are playing behind the line of scrimmage, and if we're to believe that this is the best linebacker group or one of the most talented linebacker groups they've had, which I don't know, I think we both kind of think it to be true. Then yeah, I think they'll do a little bit better than last year.
Yeah, I'm mostly inclined to agree. Now, what about team sacks? I set the number at 33.5. Pitt had 31 last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because the 4 years prior, they were like 50, like 2nd or 3rd, 1st in the country, like every season.
Yep.
And they don't have one of those guys that they had on those teams. They don't have a Rashad Weaver. They don't have a Kalijah Cansey this year. This is the one that gives me trouble. Like, because
really,
I'm starting to come around on this defense. Like, I believe it's going to be pretty good, but I still like worry about like not having that one elite player up front, like which they always seem to have. I don't know. I mean, like, sample size says like, yeah, they're going to do it because they did it for like 5 years in a row and they had a bad team last year. So I don't know. I guess I'll say over.
Everybody else in the media did too. 8-0. Everybody took the over. I think teams should have to pass more. When Eli Holstein has Pitt's offense rolling and other teams have to try and keep up, I think that, opponents are going to have to pass more, and so there'll be more opportunities for sacks. All right, 2 more team interceptions. I said the number at 11.5. Last year, Pitt had 10. Everybody in the media took the over on this one. What are you taking, Jim?
I guess I'll be a follower. I mean, if PJ O'Brien's going to have 3.5 of them himself, I mean,
he's going to have at least 4, if not 5. So,
yeah, I'll go over.
All right. I don't know. I think PJ O'Brien might have 4 or 5, but I'm not sure if they'll go over 11.5 or not. So, last one, and this is the biggest one of all. We have to save it for last. It's the team wins. Now, when I sat down with the other guys today, I had the number set at 7.5, and everybody thought that was too easy. They all said that was a very easy number to call, and a far more difficult number to set would be 6.5. So I changed it. The line moved. The line is 6.5,
Wow.
Jim. Over under on team wins. Regular season, 6.5.
I felt all along this is a 7-5 football team, so I'll say the over.
There we go. There it is. 3 out of 8 took the over. 5 out of 8 took the under on 6.5. So not a lot of faith among the media.
Now that it's over, like, do I get to see everyone's answers? Like, who?
I just took the numbers. I didn't write down name by name.
Okay. I thought we had a spreadsheet last year.
We did, but that spreadsheet, I sent that out to everybody. I was like, here, just fill it in, whatever you want to do. And the only people who did it was like you, Jerry, and Noah and Steve. So, and all of you did something ridiculous. Like took the over on 33.5 points per game or something like that. Which I was like, wow, we overshot that one. Everybody took the over on Phil Dracovic playing 10 games.
Yeah, that's the
10
one
and a
that
half.
stuck out.
So,
Yeah, that stood out.
but yeah, over under. I don't know. Let me see if we got anything here in the comments or questions. Mark wants to know over under the number of times Pitt wears the ice white uniforms. 1.5. I would say under on that. What would you say?
Judging by what recruits wear on their visits, I would say they're going to wear them every game. But nah, probably under. They'll save it for one. Like what? I don't know what they have. Like a big away game that they would pull them out. Last year they pulled it out for like Wake Forest.
Yeah, at Louisville could be a big one late in the season. It could be a big game.
Yeah, I could see that.
At SMU, would you?
I don't know.
SMU just unveiled that they have their own icy white uniforms to combat the Dallas Heat or something like that. So
they always wear like white pants and white helmets. So like what?
Yeah, I wonder if they do the. Don't the Cowboys do that? They always wear white at home to force like the visiting team to wear dark colors so they absorb the heat and whatever stupidity that it is.
Yeah,
I think I remember something like that.
I think that's the reason why, and I guess LSU too.
Oh, does LSU do that?
Yeah, they're always white.
Whatever. Don't really care. You know what I do care about? You know what it does look good is Home Field. HomeFieldApparel.com has all the best Pitt gear that you're possibly going to find. It's some of the sweetest designs. I don't have my Home Field shirt on today, but I often do wear Home Field shirts because they're super soft and they look great. They have instantly recognizable vintage logos. You look at all these schools. You look at like the Pitt logos. You look at any school across the country that has Home Field stuff, and like it might not be a graphic or an image or a mark that you've seen before, and it might look retro and vintage, but it's instantly recognizable as that school. Like it looks like Pitt stuff, maybe from the 30s, but it's super sweet with a modern touch. And again, it's on a super high quality shirts. Home Field has been on top of the college sports gear game for a long time. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, hoodies, joggers, koozies, anything you could possibly want. They've got it, and it's some of the best stuff. It really is. It fits great. It holds its shape. It's soft. It's as good as it gets. And the best part of all, if you use the promo code PIT24 right now, you can get 15% off your first order. Go to HomeFieldApparel.com. Check it out. PIT24 is the promo code. 15% off your first order. All right. We got a minute or two here. Let's see. There's any other good comments you guys have. Here, we'll leave it on this one. Paul Sebastian, what are the pros and cons to playing teams like Kent State and Youngstown State? I'm not saying Pitt should play teams like Alabama, but why not play Power 5 teams instead? I'll tell you why. So you can stack wins, right? Yeah. Stack wins. That's all that matters. When you look back at the end of the year and you say, what was their record? 10-2 looks better than 8-4. 8-4 looks better than 6-6. And if the difference in those two wins was that you played Youngstown State and Kent State as opposed to Michigan State and Iowa, give me the Kent State and Youngstown State, right?
Yeah, I think we have that every time like Pitt announces like a new game like 4 years in advance. So we always go through this like argument on the message boards. Whenever Ohio State and Alabama and all those teams stop playing FCS schools, then Pitt should stop doing it. But as long as Alabama's taking a free win, then Pitt should do the same.
I don't even think Pitt should stop it if Alabama and Ohio State. I think they should stop it if somebody says those will no longer count toward your win total. Otherwise, stack wins. Just build up wins. I mean, like, you don't gain anything. You don't gain. They gained nothing from that 2-game series against Oklahoma State. You know, there was nothing that came out of that. You play those kinds of games. You play Power 5 opponents in the non-conference for one of two reasons. One, to build your playoff resume. Two, to get people in the stands for a marquee matchup. Well, Pitt wasn't going to the playoffs, and nobody came out to see them play Oklahoma State. So that was a fail. You know, Tennessee series, that was cool, but it was also a loss in 2022. They could have gone 10-3 instead of 9-4 if they played, pick somebody, Ohio University, Miami of Ohio, or somebody like that instead of Tennessee. So Why? Like, there's no upside. There's no upside to it at all unless it's West Virginia, Penn State, or Notre Dame. And that's just because those are compelling games to watch. I like even the ones that are coming up. What do they have? They have Wisconsin.
In Ireland.
Yeah.
You going to go to Ireland?
No. Nope. They have another UCF series. Did they schedule another Central Florida or something like that?
I do think they play them. They have like that weird they're bringing back the UConn series, a two-game set with UConn.
I mean, that's better than Oklahoma State.
Fine.
I mean,
that's fine.
Play that. Don't go schedule something with like Washington or something like that. There's nothing to be gained by that. Nothing at all. Stack wins. That's all that matters is you pile up as many wins as you possibly can. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in during this over-unders. I always enjoy doing it. The hour goes by fast. It was a lot of fun, and I appreciate everybody for checking it out. Next week we'll have our season preview because it's going to be in the season. It's coming up fast. Can't believe it. So everybody enjoy your final weekend before the Pitt season starts for whatever that's worth. Jim, thank you for your time tonight. Thanks everybody in the comment section, chat for hanging out. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. Don't forget Panther-Lair.com, promo code KICKOFF2024 to get 60% off your first year. And I think that's about it. We'll be back with another live stream Wednesday night. We'll have the morning pit tomorrow. In the meantime, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. Have a great night, and we will catch up with you again soon.